Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 11th episode of Weaving Myths Season 3. Weaving Myths is a podcast focused on tabletop rolling games and specifically playing them through the play by post format. I'm your host, Colin, and joining me today are Lee
Hello.
and Chimi.
I was told to say, try to behave yourself.
I am site staff for my sins, and Lee and Chimi are members on Mythweavers, one of the largest play by post gaming websites in existence, and we're here to help you bring your game to the next level. Or babble for the next hour and a half. Take your pick. If you're not familiar with Mythweavers, you can find it at myth-weavers.com. As always, we are joined by the impeccable text chat, which members of Mythweavers are using right now to ask questions and contribute to the discussion. If you too would like to be part of the text chat, feel free to join us on the Mythweavers Twitch channel at twitch.tv/weavingmyths. This week we'll be talking about using established worlds versus homebrewed worlds in your game. Also be sure to stick around until after the game of the episode for some very exciting announcements for an upcoming contest. So, diving into things, established settings versus homebrew settings. Let's lead off with the established settings. Chimi, what would you say are some of the pros for an established setting and why?
Some of the pros for established settings, like my personal favorite established setting, Eberron, include things like abundant reference materials. There's a lot of detail that's gone into the setting. If you are wondering about a particular area of the world, odds are that it's been either given a book itself or it's covered somewhere in some book, or specifically left for your imagination, of course. So that means that when you're playing, if your players decide they want to go somewhere, there's no need to make up new things about that place, or at least not too many of them, besides what we have to make up in every kind of role playing game. If they want to go to the country that's to the west of wherever they are, there's rules for it. You don't need to make up a country and what it's like politically. So easy reference for the GM there. And then, of course, if everyone has access to these world details, you can just jump in and play. If someone comes to me and says, "Hey, I want to start a Eberron game," I can say, "Okay, I already know it. I have the materials to reference what I want. Let's start going."
And I'd say at the same time, that actually kind of brings up a con, which is if people don't know the setting, they either can't take part or they're going to have to go out and buy the setting book. And especially with some of the bigger systems, I would say you can look at anywhere from $30 to $60 for a setting.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what I would have to pay to replace my built up Eberron books from years and years ago.
Lee, thoughts?
Well, that kind of dovetails into my problems with Shadowrun lately. Is every time they release a new edition, what did they change this time? Because they constantly change the timeline with every edition. I don't even know how it works anymore.
That is something. Well, I mean, you can have timeline changes that are great. You can have timeline changes that are terrible. That's, in my opinion, the transition when D&D went from 3.5 to 4th edition with Forgotten Realms. They nuked the island of Lantan, which I love that little bit of steampunk worked into the Forgotten Realms setting. I'm sure it was something someone slipped it in and they just didn't really notice until then. But it made me sad when they got rid of it. Leah's looking at things. I see the reflection in her glasses.
I can't help it. I need to click, 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 click. Yeah, and then when they do change it, you kind of have to change it. I mean, especially when you're starting a new game, because everybody has the new material. You can go back to the old stuff. It's still there, but if somebody has fourth edition and somebody else has 3.5 edition or third edition or second edition, then you have the setting materials from those. You have to reconcile what does this person have versus what does this person have. How do I need to go about and buy a new book? Same problem before, but still,
Well, and
as
then
somebody operating from a different understanding of it, and you don't even realize it. Do elves do this in one edition and that in one edition, and then somebody is working along with the elves from one and not realizing that we're using the elves from the other.
this
Minor
exists,
details.
this doesn't exist, these nations are or aren't at war now. Yep. And then, I mean, you can, if everyone wants to continue using a previous timeline setting or previous time in something. I think you guys get what I mean.
Yes. But
I,
everybody has to agree upon it was before this world-shattering event happened, after this world-shattering event happened, that kind of thing. So that's just an extra thing that everybody has to know and agree about.
I mean, you've got that, and then you've got, because a lot of the systems, you're getting those timeline jumps when a new edition comes out. And I mean, when a new edition comes out, okay, you might want to use the old setting, but now you've got to update any setting rules to use the new edition. And depending on changes, I mean, there's usually not a lot of setting specific rules, but I know Forgotten Realms has some. Chimi, does Eberron have any?
Yeah, Eberron had some interesting things. Like when it went from 3.5 to fourth edition, they had to, in some people's opinions, include, in my opinion, shoehorn in Eladrin into the world. Um, so they had to make, even though technically the timeline didn't advance, it was still the same year. Suddenly there were all these weird fake high elves that had been running around all along that we had never heard about. Uh,
Obviously, they were there all the
they
time.
were
All
there
along.
all along. And then there were things like the we got used to the Warforge, the living constructs that had their own inbuilt armor. Uh, and they had to change the rules for those a lot to go into fourth edition in ways that a lot didn't really make a lot of sense for the fluff that people had built up in 3.5. So there were some issues there, yeah.
But on the other hand, going back to the pros, so I am old. I remember back when Gen Con was in Milwaukee and FASA came out with the death of Dunkelzahn. And it was this big thing. It was an event that actually happened at Gen Con. It was super exciting to be part of that event because they had the election. So everybody voted in the election. And then on the last day of con, they had the results, which were not what anybody expected. And just when you're part of that, when you're there while it's happening, that's actually really exciting and really cool, and everybody wants to work with it. So there's that too.
I mean, I'm still caught on the back at the beginning of Gen Con. Little
well,
focused on that part. Way to date yourself, Lee.
this was back when it was in Milwaukee, so it wasn't the
Yeah.
beginning. It wasn't in Lake Geneva anymore.
Yeah, there is that. And they just had, God, the 50th anniversary was a couple years ago?
It was a couple of years ago. Yeah, this was 52.
Yeah, it's been a little bit.
A little bit.
Okay, where were we? Now that we've tangented. I'm gonna pretend I'm an adult at least and semi-drag us back on topic. Maybe.
But is that really what the people want?
Jimmy, you're part of the podcast this time. You're not in the text chat. You can't be the divisive one.
Oh, I can. You brought me in and you can't kick me out.
Oh, that's it. Next time I'm getting Zan. How much worse could it be?
No.
Alright, so established settings. We did, alright, to be fair, we kind of harped on cons a good amount there. But it really is. I mean, I think the greatest thing is just you've got this wealth of important NPCs on which you can draw. And personally for me, I'm terrible at the on the spot name thing. So it's less of an issue in play by post, but I'll get into, especially at the table games, oh, this wizard never goes, what's their name? Oh shit, Tim? And
Tim the Enchanter.
which, just a tangent, for anyone that didn't know, Tim the Enchanter, that line from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, was an ad-lib because John Cleese forgot his line.
He forgot the big long name that he was
So
supposed to say,
John
and he just
Cleese
said Tim.
pulled a Game Master move and just said the first name that popped into his mind. Except Monty Python and the Holy Grail was a lot more forgiving of that than players at a game are.
Right. I can actually relate this to what I do, which is writing. I don't know if people don't know that I am a writer. um, established settings is kind of like you're working with fanfic. And the really awesome thing about fanfic is that if you don't have a lot of experience with world building, you don't need any. You need 0% experience with world building. All you do is just take what's there. And that's what's great about fanfic as a way to get experience writing, but it's also great as a way to get experience gaming, especially if you're a new GM and you really have no idea what you're doing. Having to come up with all the world building details is just an extra thing on top of that. I mean, you have to learn the rules, you have to figure out how to help these other new people, you have to, come up with the bad guy and the plot and all of this other stuff, and then throw on top of that, oh, and what's everything else? Why don't you just fill an entire world? But yeah, so it's really good, especially for people with less experience.
That is true. And especially, most of my experience with pre-built system or pre-built settings is Forgotten Realms. So at least what always helped me there is they kind of mix in the socio-political bit between some of the countries. So I don't have to worry about why does this country hate that country because they've already filled in that detail for me. Whereas, coming up with that, I'm not good at socio-political
There's a
intrigue.
war. Why? I don't know.
They hate each other and they've been fighting for years, and the end, go do something.
There
Stop
was some
asking me
kind of trade
questions.
dispute. I don't know.
Stop asking
The,
questions. Rocks fall, everyone dies.
one king punched another king, and it all snowballed from there. Don't ask. Don't ask questions.
It all started with somebody using the wrong spoon.
I feel like that actually could be a compelling story bit.
Well, yes, it could be, but it's a story. That's the problem. You can't just say
Soon to come
one
and
person used the wrong spoon and now they're at war. You kind of have to fill in a few extra details.
coming soon in Lee's next novel. Why the elves went to war.
And it was because the humans don't know how to use spoons properly.
Etiquette. Etiquette's everything.
It really
Using
is.
the wrong spoon. Egregious insult.
Absolutely. You set down your knife and fork the wrong way. That's a big insult too.
Man, you want to talk about almost technical hiccups. I almost clicked leave call by accident.
Awesome.
Never would have heard the end of that one. Jamie, stop changing your avatar.
I don't know.
Alright. So, one of the big things to kind of look at, too, kind of a middle spot. Lee, you were talking about fanfic and how
Mhm.
established settings are a little bit like doing that. What about when you do a partial homebrew? You modify an established setting to kind of incorporate some twists that aren't there, they aren't present. which I think really a lot of game masters start that way as opposed to just going full homebrew.
Yes, in the publishing business, we call that filing off the serial numbers. It's like the next step after using an established setting when you're not when you have some experience under your belt. You can start messing around with things that just kind of don't appeal to you. Like, these gods are stupid. I want to use my own. Why is there not a country here? There should be a country here. What I'll just put something in. And that's kind of how a lot of people start, I think. I mean, when I started going to homebrew settings for my stuff, that was pretty much where I began is I'll take this thing that already exists and then I'll add this other thing, change some of this stuff, turn the dial to 11, things like that.
Yep. This nation fights this nation now. This blew
Because
up.
somebody used the wrong spoon.
Well, and then you can. I have seen it done where you've got an established setting, your players ran an adventure, and okay, maybe you're starting a new game, and you can incorporate what those players did, your previous party did, and kind of insert some of that stuff into the next group's adventure.
Sure, like so you start with the setting and then you get experience and then you use what happened in the adventure, the aftermath, as kind of a jumping off point to turn the setting a little bit more yours. Mine.
My precious. So, Chimi, you're kind of pulling the quiet Colin move. What are your thoughts?
I I mean, I don't have a whole lot to say about fanfic, but in every if you're using an established setting, you're still making things up on the fly. That's just a part of DMing. Unless you're running something very strictly from like a pre-made adventure path or something, you're still, making up enemies. You're still making up the name of the inn that they're going to,
Mm-hmm.
little people that they're interacting with. So, every single established setting piece is a little bit of the homebrew too. So
Right, but you're not throwing in a mountain range in the middle of things where it really
Right.
doesn't belong.
that's true. That's very true.
You must cross this mountain path. We're in a desert. Oh, there's mountains there now.
But there's mountains now.
Yeah.
A wizard did it.
Obviously. It's always just magic. That's the answer.
That only works in the fantasy settings.
A space wizard did it.
There's a very fine line between fantasy and science fiction.
An ancient precursor race did it.
Yeah.
There we go.
It was the
All right.
aliens.
The aliens did it.
Not saying it was aliens, but it was definitely aliens.
Hell, I've seen that used in fantasy settings. It's some weird energy wand. Oh, a lightsaber? No. Oh.
No, it's a wand, I swear.
Makes me think of
The magic weapon.
Makes me think of the Gamers movies. You have a shotgun? It was in the bag. Anyone that hasn't seen the 3 movies, The Gamers, it's ultimate nerddom indie film. Highly recommend it. Alright, so.
+2.
Huh?
+2.
The first one is exceptionally strong with the nerddom as well. Alright, so. Kind of quasi homebrew covered. Let's talk about homebrew settings. What would y'all say some of the big pros are to homebrew?
You can do anything.
Anything.
All the things.
Which arguably is also one of the biggest cons, I'd say.
Yes, it is definitely the worst thing about it too. Best and worst at the same time.
So I'd say probably the hardest bit about homebrew, especially if you want to get started in a game quickly, is you don't have a cohesive anything.
No, nothing. Nothing is ever cohesive at all.
You're gonna have like one country mostly fleshed out, hopefully.
You
You
might
might,
just have a town. Maybe all you know about is the tavern where everybody meets.
yep,
They
yep.
step out the door and you got to start making stuff up.
You might
That's
have some kingdom names, and then you wind up
I have
with.
played this game, by the way.
I mean, it's considered one of the ways to generate a world is to play what's called an inside out game,
Mhm.
where
Yep.
you start in a tavern and as you go, you just put more interesting stuff in
Yep.
the way and build it out.
That's what all those random generators are for.
hmm I would argue if you're doing inside out generation, though, you are in sandbox territory. Because your players are going to ignore your plot hooks, because every party ignores the plot hooks.
Well, yes,
And
but
you're pretty much stuck at railroad them or start making up stuff on the spot and hope you can keep it together. Inside Out can be rough.
I would argue that if you are really on the ball and have some basic ideas, maybe nothing is fleshed out. I don't think you have to go into a sandbox. But it's quite likely. It's extremely likely, at least that you'll end up there for a little bit while you figure things out.
And Tiffany Corda points out, same thing, play to find out and all that. So there's another advocate for the Inside Out. I'd
Right.
argue
There's nothing wrong with it. It can work perfectly well, and it can be a really great way to get players into their characters.
depending on your
Because
players.
yeah, some players
Because you
don't,
can
but
be on the ball as all get out, and then you grab Chimi, Fate, and a few others, and you are screwed. Notice how quiet Chimi is at that.
You know, you really say that a lot for someone that's running this game. I'm just saying. Do you want me to take over? I can take over.
Oh no, this is my train wreck to run. The Mythweaver's potluck game is my train wreck. You can't have it. I claim that disaster.
there's only one engineer here.
No, actually, Sarek is in the game, so that's an engineer. Eric is helping adjust the
There's
middle
only
school
one
setting.
engineer here.
Oh, okay, fair. And King Nate mentioning Inside Out being a favorite way to play and mentioning filing the serials off. So you've done, Lee? You're giving people new terms.
It's a legit term that we use
I
in
know, I
business.
believe you. So, yes, pro
So
ultimate flexibility. Con, players are unpredictable.
the reverse con, I don't want to say it that way, but the reverse bad thing about homebrew settings is that you can get really wrapped up in world building.
Oh my god,
So
yes you
again,
can.
coming from a writing perspective, I know and have talked to people who have been working on their setting for years and years and years, and they just never stop. There's always something else to think about. There's always something else to worry about. Whether you go from top down, bottom up, inside out, middle out, they just keep working on it forever. It's never done.
And have they actually played in that world at all?
I'm talking about actually writing books, but
Oh, okay.
and no, they
Well,
haven't written any of the books either. They just keep building the world because it's fun. I mean, it is incredibly fun to world build, but at a certain point you have to stop and say, am I ever going to use this
I mean,
for
so
anything? Either a game, a book, whatever, and so you can just keep going and going and going forever and just never use it for anything.
well, and hell, that's happened on Mythweavers in the Discord server. And we're still. I think it tapered off a little bit because I distracted Iron Blaze with other things.
Well, distraction works.
Oh, he's He is one of our Mythweaver's Navy types. If you don't know the acronym, ask to join. You'll find out what it means.
Don't ask to join.
Lee knows. Jimmy knows too.
And here we are, yes,
And
because
here we
know.
are. But anyway, semi going back on topic. There have been a few, and they're still ongoing because, let's face it, Weaver's memories are eternal. You know, it'll be a year from now, and I guarantee we'll go back and start world building one of those settings again, but you'll wind up with collaborative Mythweaver settings. And it just goes and goes and goes, and might hit the point of being ready to start a game, but then someone else has another idea, and everyone jumps in, and let's keep expanding, and then you get the engineers that are members in, and everything goes to hell.
You and
You
your
should
physics.
you should see what happens with some of the world building on the certain special secret server
Which
that a
one?
lot of the Fate people like to hang out on. The one that
Oh.
me and Chi and Ruben run.
Oh, the one I avoid like the plague because I don't have time to learn another system.
Yeah, that one. But Fate is a very easy game for you to go, oh, I have an idea for a world or a game or something like that. And we don't need to worry about the rules because the Fate spiral will handle it. So let's just world build for a month and then the game never happens.
It's kind of designed to work that way. I mean, not for a month, but
I don't know. The worst I've seen still, you're doing collaborative world building. If you get Sarek Hawk, myself, Iron's pretty bad. You get us involved, and it's going to start getting out of control. If you want it to go completely off the rails, you get Absent Wizard involved, and it's going to be awesome. You're also going to have a migraine by the end.
if there ever is an end.
The last time I got Absent involved in a hey, let's tweak this rule set, it turned into hey, let's write a system, and that hasn't ended. That's still going.
That's why you have Fate.
I'm not learning it yet, Jimmy. You can't do this
Do you
to
want
me.
do you want I mean we got another hour. I could teach you Fate.
No. I refuse. And King Nate mentions that the world build and Fate spiral is what happened when he played Fate.
I think it's happened to everybody at least once.
I'm
sure it happened to Fred Hicks.
I've heard of that happening in Fate. What is it? Is it Shadowrun, where you can die during character creation? Is it that system?
Well, it kind of depends on how you look at it.
So it's
Traveler.
Oh, Traveler. Yep.
I mean, technically, you can theoretically become an NPC during character creation in Shadowrun, but only if you're not doing the math right.
See, Traveler is what I almost got into, and then I found Stars Without Number and brought that madness to Mythweaver's spotlight because I keep mentioning it here. You poor folks. Yep, and everyone else, Lee also jumped in going, nope, that's Traveler. Oh, and I just missed. Yeah, King Nate said he was in the Navy, so yeah, he knows what Navy stands for as an acronym too. Don't tell anyone. All right. Dragging us back.
You talked about collaborative world building, and back to individual world building. You can also get hung up on parts that you don't enjoy doing.
Oh God, yes.
So maybe you really like to make maps and fill in the maps, and then you have all these beautiful countries and coastlines and mountains and all of this wonderful stuff. And then how does the magic system work? Who has magic? Who are the rulers? I don't know, and I don't care. I don't want to know. I hate that part. Why do you make me do politics? It's evil. This is
any
why I only write epic fantasy with a co-author.
anytime I get into something involving politics, I just wish I had someone like David Weber on speed dial. This is politics. I don't want to do it. You do it.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's fair.
Yeah.
That's what I do. I say I don't want to do this part. You do it, and then they do it, and it makes me happy.
Which works great unless you're doing solo homebrew, and then you're kind of stuck.
Right. And that is a big problem because if you just are not, if you don't understand it, if you don't like it, if you have no idea how to do it, then those parts are not going to work right for you.
And I will, so just to slide in a thought, because I know there's a lot of roll tables you can find all over the everywhere, because the internets are a big place. But Stars Without Number, even the free version, has a lot of roll tables for nation political setups, organizations, and I mean it's roll, okay, this is a democratic republic, this is a oligarchy, whatever. And then there's roll tables below that to kind of flesh out how it operates. So I
Some of the
know there's
older DMGs have those too.
yeah, I was gonna say I know there's other roll tables that do similar. My experience is Stars Without Number, and I have seen those adapted for D&D, Pathfinder, whatever, because it's a good, useful set of roll tables that aren't setting or they aren't rules specific. It's your fluff. This is a shipping company that works with the criminal underground because blah blah blah. Here's your 3 plot hooks to throw in for this organization. Have fun. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I know some of the older DMGs have stuff like that, but they don't get terribly in depth in that way.
Right.
Although they kind of do, because like there'll be the table where this is what alignment the government is, and this is a major player outside of the government, and that's what alignment they are. And it's kind of it's I don't know, it's helpful if you're blanking, but it's a little silly.
I mean, I think that is one of the big homebrew things is at some point you're going to have a my name is Tim the Enchanter moment.
Well, sure,
It's your players are going to
it's
blindside
inevitable.
you because they're players. And yeah, it's going to happen. It's unavoidable, but it'll be
You
fun.
try not to, but eventually you just I don't know, Tim.
I've had that. I've had the make up some ship name, make up some planet name, and then all your players
Everybody
just
always wants to know what things are named. Everybody.
what what's this named? Oh, what's this company's relationship with this company? How do planetary
You're talking
governments
about big
A and
things. I
B?
mean, you just go to a tavern and suddenly your
Okay,
players
fair.
want to know the name of the wench that you're talking to for 5
Oh my
minutes.
god. Yep. Unless you're the bard. Bards never care about names. It's just I roll
No.
to seduce her. Bards.
That's true. Tim the Enchanter moments don't come up so much during play by post games because the GM does have plenty of time, although I I, I have to admit that I have had one of those moments during a play by post because it was rapid fire posting.
And I was gonna say,
And
and oh, go ahead.
they asked the name of the tavern wench. And I wanted to reach
I
through
was
my
wondering if that
computer.
was a real incident.
I wanted to reach through my computer and punch them, and I couldn't, and that made me sad.
And I'd say another caveat to the having time to come up with stuff during play by post. A lot of folks have started doing, well, I don't know how many. Several folks, at the very least, have started doing a Discord server for their game, just for the out of character bit. Because I know in my games, and I think, Chimi, you're doing it in yours, right?
Insofar as I had a game, yeah.
Okay. Chimi's one of my players in 2 games? 1 game. 1 game. You're only in one so far. So it's been useful to have the out of character discussion in a Discord server because a lot of folks that are using Discord tend to have it installed on their phone. So, it's shortening that conversation loop, being able to go, hey, I was thinking of doing this, and if you're doing it on Discord, most of the group's going to see it within the next hour at the latest. When you're doing it on the forums, you're waiting, they might check the forums once a day, unless they get some notice that something happened. So, using the out of character, I've been hit with Tim the Enchanter moments. Because I'll have all 6 players on Discord at the same time, and hey, what's this person's name? Hey, what's that? That's the prancing pony, and then they look at you like you're an idiot. You can feel that look through the screen.
Well, yeah, and in the Ice Ages, before we used Discord for this, there was AIM chat,
Oh
and
god.
the same thing happened.
I remember AOL Instant Messenger. That's how I used to talk with David, one of the other admins on Mythweavers. He still has the logs.
Why would he not? You never get rid of logs.
Exactly. I never get rid of logs.
I mean, these are logs from 2007.
The only way I lose logs is if I change computers and they just don't get transferred.
Yeah, my old computer has IRC logs from probably like 2002.
I
Ugh,
think I have some
IRC.
from pretty far back.
I will say, the unofficial Mythweavers IRC chat that ran for years after the Shoutbox got killed because of resources, the greatest thing about that IRC is I didn't have to be in charge of anything because it was unofficial.
Yeah, that meant that Lee was in charge of
The
it.
rest of us were in charge of it. Yeah, that was super fun. Thanks.
It was unofficial. I didn't start it.
I didn't start it either. How did I get sucked into?
Blame
Never
Chimmy.
mind.
You're
When in doubt, blame
responsible. You're a responsible person.
Although, Lee, I do
I'm
think
always
that's
getting screwed for being competent.
I do think that's where you and I first started actually talking.
That's possible.
Like, it's one of those things, and we found that with the Mythweavers Discord, you're aware, especially when you're staff that's been around way too damn long, you know a lot of the regulars' names, but you probably haven't talked to them, and then something happens like the Discord, and you're talking to all of them now, and getting to know everyone. It's just, interesting. You don't expect a Chimi to sound like a Chimi.
I totally expected him to sound the way he sounded the first time I met him.
I will say the most entertaining thing for me has been when we started the podcast, people messaging us going, y'all don't sound like I expected you to sound. And then you throw the faces in with the video, and people are going, you don't look like you should sound that way. Well, too bad. I don't do the radio voice. Deal with it.
Life sucks, and then you die.
Or rocks fall and everyone dies,
Yeah, whatever. It's all the same.
All right, now that we've completely tangented with no adult supervision because Nathan couldn't be here.
Mission complete.
I mean, if
I
Amy
have
was
never
here,
gotten
we'd
off
never
on a
get
tangent,
back on
ever.
topic.
Never happened.
No, if Amy was here, we'd never get back on topic. So, homebrew settings, where were we?
I think we were about to talk about unscrupulous creators.
No.
Oh.
So, tailoring the world.
Oh.
Yes.
Whatever.
We'll get to unscrupulous creators, don't worry. So
I mean, that's really just the other side of that coin, isn't it?
Yeah. So here, I'll take this one. Tailored world to the greater and relevant players and characters. This is simple things like if the GM and the players don't care about political intrigue, you don't need to make a world that has a lot of political intrigue involved, at least not in a way that actually impacts what the characters are doing. If you want to have a simple, sort of fairy tale feudal world where the adventurers are just heroes that go out to slay a dragon, you can do that. If you're playing in a more established world, the fact that in Eberron, there is traveling papers. You need a passport to go into the next country, and you need to give a reason why you're going in there for the most part. Sort of breaks the immersion if you play the fairy tale adventure and you don't worry about that kind of things. It can definitely be done. I could run a game where I say we're playing Eberron, but I'm not going to worry about the fiddly details like traveling papers. Uh, but still, that sort of breaks that a little bit. Don't need to worry about that with a completely homebrew world. It also means that things like, if someone wants to play a Warforged type character, they can be included in that world. If the GM really wants there to be, elves as a major focus, then elves can be very involved with the world. Ancient wizards and stuff can all be elves, that sort of fun thing. Someone wants to play gunslinger, guns are a thing. There you go.
Well said, Jimmy.
Brief aside, because Lulumi put it in the Discord chat and not in the Twitch chat. Yes, her name is Tavern Wench. Her first name is Tavern. Oh, damn it, Lulumi. So yes, being able to tailor the world to player expectations, party expectations can be wonderful. Because, you get to, especially like Chimi was saying, if the goal is, adventure, explore, to hell with the politics, elves and humans fight because wrong spoon works for that kind of thing. You don't have to go deep. 9 times out of 10, you probably don't even have to explain why they're at war.
Right. If nobody cares, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If I can relate this back to writing again. When I
Well,
world build,
Author relating back to what she does for a profession? Never.
I actually when I world build, I build from the plot out, which is not common, but is something that people do. Which is to say that the world building serves the plot. The plot doesn't exist within the world building. So when I need something because I want to do it in the story, it goes into the world, which is basically this idea that we're talking about.
Right.
You need a thing, you put it in. You don't need a thing, who cares?
If you're very unlucky, you go, I need to talk to someone with background in this, and then you start asking people like Eric and me, and God, that gets out of hand fast.
I would never do that.
There's a book with a forward credits that I still can't believe you put in, but yes. I would say though, so with homebrew, one of the big issues, and we kind of touched on it, is you can get decision paralysis. Pretty bad. And it can be compounded by your players putting you on the spot because, oh, maybe suddenly they care about the politics.
Right, it's the same thing as running out of spoons. I mean, you can be sitting there needing to make decisions and just be like, I don't know. I don't know. What do I do? Roll a die. I'm a gamer, but that's it.
I mean, a little bit. So you always run into homebrew, quasi-homebrew, established setting. It's, well, hell, one of the standard tabletop RPG tropes is here's all these hooks and the players find the one that's not listed. But that can be a little worse in homebrew because you don't even have anything to reference for that. They chose path 48 and you only had 47 paths ready. Suddenly you're coming up with...
What kind of a monster are you that you have 47 paths ready?
I run sandbox games. By this point, I just dangle a couple hooks and see what happens. You're going that way? You're ignoring every. All right, cool. Let's go that way. We got that. Rocks fall, everyone dies. Oh man, you run a system that's deadly. They're afraid to do anything half the time. Then the times they do something, they go all in, and you go, crap, I might actually party wipe them.
You said doo doo.
But the decision paralysis can also come in the planning stages when you reach a point that you have. So I can go this way or I can go this way. What happens if I go this way and then you start going off that way? You hit something that doesn't seem quite right. You start going off that way. You hit something that also you don't like. And then which one do you choose? Is there a third option? How do I come up with the third option? And that can lead you to just stall out.
Well, sometimes, because I've run into that with Splatbook expansions, and 3.5 edition of D&D had Heroes of Battle, was how to run your heroes in a war. You know, treat them more like special forces, not regular line infantry, yada yada yada. But it had a, in my opinion, it wasn't a bad way to kind of lay it out. You know, way what the players are doing might not win the battle, but it'll have an impact on the battle. But it was, oh, use flow charts and lay it out, and that got out of hand with me really quick. Instant decision paralysis. You know, oh, the battle could do this, and the battle could do this, and what happens then, and then, and then, and then, and about the point you wind up with 8 routes that can happen off of one action, you've gotten out of hand.
A little bit, just a smidge, a touch.
And then when each of those has 8 more, I never ran anything with that splat book because it gets out of hand with me. Great idea, I'm the wrong person to run it. And then one of the King Nate mentions if he ever plays a game with me, he'll need a protection from rocks spell. A good way to put it, one moment, let me pull this up. So Fate tossed out a line that wound up becoming my new signature. Let's see, where was it? Because I made some comment about, deadly system, blah, blah, blah. Because in the rookie 5th ed game I'm running, I accidentally almost party wiped on the first encounter. Not intentional, just I'm used to deadly systems and it didn't feel unbalanced, and then Fate is co-GMing that one, kind of went, this encounter was probably a little too much and the AP is just a little unbalanced in parts. So the way Fate summarized it is, I let the dice fall where they land, he says as he wades through a path of dead characters. That pretty much, I mean, to be fair, that does really kind of summarize my GMing style. I don't fudge rolls. If the players do something, my games are, there's always something bigger that can squick you. If you hit it, that was your fault. It happens. Anyway, Chimi, did you want to cover the biggest conned homebrew for some players?
I would be perfectly happy to cover it. So we all have those GMs that just they really cross the line. One of the good things about the homebrew is you're allowed to put in what you like and leave out what you dislike, but some people push it too far, and we're talking now about those unscrupulous creators who do just heinous things like removing gnomes from their homebrew world, which I think that everyone can agree is just unacceptable and should be punished to the fullest extent
Monstrous.
of the law. Yeah.
Absolute tragedy. Chimi, do you happen to know of a setting where this has happened on Mythweavers?
I have struck any such setting from my mind.
Bond.
It shall never cross my lips.
Then again, homebrew gets to a certain point, especially if you use, say, the MythWiki, where you could argue it's more of an established setting. So then you
That's
could
very true. Yeah.
homebrew that setting and fix things like Pond not having gnomes present because of Basil Bottle Top.
That's true. Someone could fix that train wreck of a setting.
The greatest part is Nathan doesn't edit these anymore. We outsource the video editing. So he might not see this until after the editor finishes it.
He's a monster.
But yes, Nathan is
Does anyone
never.
have any effigies of which we could burn?
Sorry, I wasn't prepared. I'll do better next time, Jimmy.
Alright, so. Unless anyone else has thoughts about established settings, quasi homebrew, or homebrew, Lee, Jamie?
No, let's rock and roll.
Well, anyone need a 5-minute break?
Homebrew or death? That's mine.
Says the author who's in the habit of homebrewing everything anyway.
Well, I have to. I can't. You can't publish fanfic. It's illegal.
Alright,
Well,
well,
I mean, you can't make money off of it. You can publish it all you want, but you know.
alright. So this is the point we usually insert a 5-minute break. It might not be 5 minutes. I personally, though, need to get a new beer. So,
And that's really important.
yes, that's critical. But that's fast. See, Amy, who is not in the podcast for some reason, but is free to talk in the Twitch chat while watching. Wait and see what she says. Yes, Amy pointed out I need family reunions. Fair. Here, y'all keep talking. I'll keep the headset
needs
on.
beer
Okay,
badly.
this is the part where I show off the fact that I'm wearing my Gen Con 20.
Oh,
shirt.
yep. Yeah, because the
Just
camera
to
couldn't
annoy
cover it.
Colin.
I'll still talk to you. I'll just be disappointed in you.
And the reason why is because I go to Gen Con work at Gen Con every year.
One of these years, I will make it. At some point.
Yeah, sure. I'll believe it when I see it.
You know, there was
I
a
see
real.
Basil every year. And by the way, you
He
should actually
lives there. What else is there
Well,
to do
yeah.
in Indiana?
Be sad that you live in Indiana.
Yep, exactly.
That's what else there is to do in Indiana. Also, you could dodge when they closed all the freeways. They closed the freeway here, which was very annoying.
Oh no, that happens in Michigan too.
Do they do it on Gen Con weekend when there's 60,000 people in from out of town?
Oh, they do it whenever the hell they want. You ever have one of those moments you grab something and then you spend time cutting up the rings that came on the 6-pack of cans because, you know, it's the responsible thing to do and you forget where you put the can? Definitely just had to look around for.
Never had that happen.
Definitely
like,
had to look for a good minute because I was busy cutting up the plastic rings.
Ever had that happen. I do not go to Origins. It is too far away from me. Gen Con isn't, but Origins. I live in the Pacific Northwest. We drive to Indianapolis. It's a long trip.
All I have to say, King Nate, about you living in Ohio is I'm sorry.
I think Indiana is much worse, personally.
But you see, the Toledo War was a thing, and there was no almost war with Indiana and Michigan. But the Toledo War almost was a shooting war between two states. Well, territory and state. It's fine. We got the Upper Peninsula, they got Toledo, and at the time they thought they won. Amy, No, not Ohio State forever. Um, don't make me wait, no, I can't threaten to unmod you. You'd like that. That's freedom from responsibility. All right. Anyway, so I'm back. There's not a 20 minutes of Chimi teaching Cloyne about Fate for 20 minutes.
But it says it in the notes. It says it in the thing.
Yeah, I bet it
It's in
does.
there.
So, before we get to some announcements, we are going to cover the highlighted game of the week. And because, well, it's me running it, not Nathan, y'all don't get to see it, but I will, or someone will, Chimi, maybe, drop the link to the game in the text chat. The highlighted game of the episode is The Natural Ones, being run by King Nate, and it closes September, Friday the 13th. So, The Natural Ones is an index card RPG game GM'd by King Nate. The Natural Ones will involve the players taking on the roles of heroes and playing through various published adventures that have been converted over to the index card RPG system. The Index Card RPG system is a minimalist D20 system with full copies available for purchase from drivethrurpg.com, or there's also a free quick start option of the rules also available on DriveThruRPG. And Amy has kindly dropped the link in the chat. Amy, you're supposed to be at a family reunion. Why are you hanging around in our text chat?
Amy's picking up Chimi's slack.
That's true.
I am
Chimi has
not
been pulling a Colin.
Okay. I am not allowed to post links in the Twitch chat because I'm not a Twitch mod. And in
That's not
the
my fault.
text thing, the Mythweavers channel on the Discord server, I'm not allowed to post text, so I posted it in general.
Oh.
I'm sorry, next time I'll interrupt you while you're in the middle of your spiel to tell you that I can't do the thing you wanted me to do.
Well, Amy's already disappointed that you didn't interrupt me right before the intro, right before clicking record.
Yeah, one moment of professionalism and I regret it immensely.
I also don't do a countdown for a reason because I'm usually screwing with Nathan. So, anyway, yet
I think
another
that's a good
tangent.
I would like to interject about the Index Card RPG. Is it is a great system that allows you to play weird and wacky characters. For example, that is the game where I am playing Chester, the Mimic Wizard. Well,
And
that's
on
the game
that note-
system. Don't just walk over me. It's important stuff. I'm playing a treasure chest that is a wizard, okay? I'm very happy about it.
That's actually really cool, Chimi.
Now you're being patronizing.
I am not!
I can see you on video. That is your patronizing face.
That is not my patronizing face. My patronizing face is more like that.
All
It's
right.
the same.
It's not.
Anyway,
You're always patronizing.
before we head into the
Go have a
free-for-all,
biscuit, Chimi.
there are some exciting announcements to make. First, we mentioned in the last episode we are hard at work preparing another contest for Mythweavers. Hope your creative juices are ready because we will be holding a map making contest. There will be 2 separate categories. This means there will be 2 separate groups of prizes. One category will be regional maps, so doing a topographical map with locations, all that. That is not a political only map. We want terrain involved. The other will be battle map creation. Full details for the rules and judging criteria are still pending, but will be released soon, right before the contest. Another thanks to our patrons whose support helps us offer a lot of the prizes. Keeps us from borrowing from the money that kind of keeps the site running on the server. I hear if we stop giving money, they just take the server offline, and then we're all sad. So
everybody gets onto the Twitter account and
and then
complains about it.
everyone, oh no, now everyone gets on the Discord because
Well,
the
yeah.
Twitter says to go to the Discord. To be fair, that's
You
how
guys
we've
all get on the
trapped
Twitter account and complain about it there.
site being down has been how we've gotten several regular members on the Discord. So, there's pros cons.
So what you're saying is the admin intentionally takes the site down in order to drive Discord.
I mean,
I think that's a quote, ladies and gentlemen.
last major outage did give us Fate. So
Gross.
anyways, it has been mentioned before, but the Weaving Myths Patreon has had an overhaul of some of the tier rewards. So if you are a patron, you should check out the changes to the awards. You should also, if you have not gotten a copy of Nathan's book, still harass him via Discord, private message on the site, whatever, until he remembers to mail that to you. And it is worth mentioning the Weaving Myths podcast has, my God, been going on for over 2 years now. Which is amazing how far it's come, especially considering the first episode was Nathan going, hey, we're going to talk with the community, and an hour before going, hey, now we're doing a podcast. So it has come far. It's been wonderful. If you have any suggestions for how to celebrate the podcast, something that involves the community, that sort of thing, or if you have suggestions for topics that we haven't discussed or previous topics that you'd like to see covered more in depth, you can let us know using the suggestion box on our Twitch page, through Patreon if you're a patron, or via the Weaving Myths thread in the site announcements forum. And one final, not so much announcement, but update. The Better Halves episode of Weaving Myths goal was met, so we are still working on organizing a period where all the regular podcast members' spouses are on podcast instead and bad-mouthing all of us. So details are still forthcoming, but we are working on it still. Now that that's out of the way, and I almost feel some sympathy for Nathan. Oh, almost.
No sympathy. 0%.
Tiny bit of sympathy.
No.
Wee bit.
No.
We are going to move into the free-for-all. So the free-for-all is a segment of the show in which we open the floor for questions and answers. And also, if someone is not asking a question, it's going to leave Lee, Chimi, and myself talking amongst each other about anything that comes to mind. So please ask questions. As always, it's going to be completely unstructured, but it gives us the freedom to talk about things, answer questions as they come in. Before we get started with member questions from the Twitch chat, the mandatory question, what's making us happy this week? Chimi.
That's not the order that we have.
Oh, we're
Fine,
going to
whatever.
go in order. I see.
No. I thought we were a professional production, but we can do this on the fly.
You're involved
so
and we're professional?
I am. You got me there, buddy. So the main thing that is occupying my happy thoughts is I have a paid month's vacation coming up in October, where depending on a couple of things, I might get to go up and see a buddy of mine, Tickle Me Cujo, maybe a couple of other things, depending on how lazy I feel. And also, new Destiny comes out about that time because I'm a nerd and I play video games.
Little trip up to Canada, huh?
Very possibly. I need to get some stuff sorted out before I can go, but yeah.
Nice. Lee?
Well, last week I just finished a manuscript that I've been working on for 5 years. I'm very pleased that it is no longer my problem. Somebody else has to revise it. I also am finally getting another one be finished by next week. And I have noted that I've released 6 books already this year, 2019, probably 3 more before the end of the year, one of which is part of a box set, which is called
Oh,
Rogue Skies. It's got a
look at you
fancy.
all prepared with cover art.
It's a box set that I have a book. It's a book 0 for my space opera Portal Fantasy YA series. My book in it is Defiant.
Ah.
And it's all about people who get sucked through worm. So that's pretty awesome. That releases 18th is available for pre-order. You can find information on my website, authorfrench.com.
Releases when you broke up a little bit.
September 17th.
Okay, cool.
I didn't know we were allowed to plug things. Can I plug something?
No, you already said what's making you happy.
All right, fine. I don't have anything to plug anyway, so whatever.
You can always toss it out in the free-for-all in a moment. So, what's making me happy is I have a job again. It's been a month and a half since I got laid off, so I found gainful employment.
Yay!
So, upside, I'm engineering again. Debatable upside downside depends on who's rating which one it is. It's a small company. I am the only mechanical engineer, so I'm making the standards. Which a lot of people have said horrifies them, which might be fair.
So, like, you're doing the homebrew setting there.
Oh, I'm completely doing the home. This is how we do dowel holes, this is how we do threaded holes, and this is how drawing Yes, that's me.
Nice.
Yes, it's the engineering equivalent of going hardcore geopolitical writing a setting. That's, except I love doing that, so it's great for me and it sucks for anyone else that gets hired after me.
Well, okay then.
So, yes, King Nate, slip fit and press fit and interference fit. I shall define them all. So, that said, we've said what's making us happy. We are into the free for all. So, text chat from Twitch. Feel free to throw questions, comments, concerns, all of the concerns. Well, Chimi tells us what he was going to plug.
I already told you I ain't got nothing to plug.
I was so hopeful that you'd
I mean, I
make
can
up
plug
something.
stuff all day. I've got like 2
That's
dozen
your
books.
job.
I mean, I can put out my Venmo handle so y'all can send me money just direct.
Yeah, we don't need to do that.
Amy says, "What work am I most proud of writing?" I'm actually most proud of book 1 of series that book in the box set is from. The main character is really messed up in the head, as Chi agree, because he's read it. The idea came from I accidentally stumbled across an Indiegogo doing girl positive and body positive music. One of the songs she has My Body, and the part that hit me the hardest was one of the lines is I want to love my body, which is just I don't know if guys have this problem, but women, that's like a revolutionary idea that you would actually love the body that you're in. And I got to talking with her because that's a weird thing that happens to me sometimes with people that I encounter randomly. And it turned out that she was bulimic. And we talked about that because I did not have an eating disorder, but everybody that I knew had some kind of and so I started writing a story about it with her input, and Porcelain is the book that eventually came out of that. And that's why I'm really proud of it, because it's about the subjects that it's about these subjects of body issue, self-esteem, eating disorders, and I think it's about them in a grown-up way, even though it's young adult. So that's what I'm most proud of.
I mean, I remember when I was in good shape and now I've got the beer belly. I can somewhat relate. I'm not. I'm
Sure.
not. I'm not too thrilled with the beer belly.
A lot of girls have these problems starting around age 10.
Yeah.
And I think boys, it's not quite the same.
No, it's
It
definitely not.
if you're gonna get it, it comes on later. I know that boys also have bulimia and anorexia, very
Yep.
serious issues, but they're much fewer boys have those.
All right. Text chat. Come up with something, or God help us, I'm gonna tell Chimi to come up with the topic.
I'll do it.
Oh, I know you'll do it. That's why I'm saying God help us. I'll have you do it if they don't ask something. Amy, Tiffany, King Nate, others. Landed asks, when am I going to make 8mm Mauser bullets? Um, Kraken is never going to make those. You can ask all you want. I'm still not doing it. I can't sell those for the prices we charge. Come on,
Amy asks, "What is everyone's favorite character flaw?"
I am an enormous fan of idiots.
of what? You
Noble idiots.
noble
People who are
idiots.
incredibly noble, but their character flaw is they're stupid. They charge into danger without thinking very hard. That is my favorite kind of character.
um, that's
Not
what.
paladins, because that's something
No,
different,
no,
but the noble idiot.
that is kind of what Fate is playing in the Stars Without Number game I'm running. Always trying to be noble, but God, she's stupid. And Fate plays that character beautifully. To the point that I've actually had to roll dice to go, would your character actually try that?
That's
Amy,
actually the entire basis of my young adult Spirit Knights series,
oh
which is
God.
fantasy. Yes, I'm gonna do that.
Plug, few
The
more
Spirit Knights
plugs.
are all noble idiots. That is what they are. Every last one of them is punch first, ask questions, maybe.
On, let's see, from the text chat we've got Landed's favorite character flaw is unlucky. I could see that being really fun for the game master, getting creative with unlucky. And Amy mentioned she made a character who wanted to be a sailor but would get horribly seasick. Fair? Oh, Landed clarifies, unlucky that I won't make the bullets, but he could see it working for a character too. You'll survive.
I like characters that I I think a good flaw, a flaw that makes a character interesting to read, is one that goes that they try for something so hard that they don't realize that they're losing all the other things in pursuit of that objective. I think that leads to fun books.
I could see
Okay,
that.
so it kind of ends justifying the mean a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
I like that in a villain.
But also a little bit, not just the ends, not intentionally like rationalizing the ends justify the means, but more um not even realizing the collateral damage while they're trying for whatever they're going for.
I actually made a character like that in Nathan's Intro to Pond or Welcome to Pond game. The setting where he removed gnomes from the world. That one. But I made an Inquisitor, and it was a. There was a lot of the true believer type element from the agent from the Serenity movie. Just kind of
Mm-hmm.
that entire, the character realizes they're probably a monster, but they're striving for this perfect world. And it's like, to them, it's like they don't rationalize, the ends justify the means because they know the ends justify the means, and, that's how, those means are how you get the perfect world. Also, I think I disturbed Nathan with that character, so points to me.
Yes, points.
It's fun when you let your demons write your character background. Um, I'm not familiar with Code Geass, is that how you say it? And I also have avoided Les Mis like the plague.
I agree that that is an apt description for Javert.
Yeah.
I know bits about Les Mis, but I've actually never.
I know the entire thing word. Hi, I was a choir nerd in high school.
Uh-huh. So much is explained now. All right, favorite musical. Lion King.
You know, you start getting into favorite things, and I don't know how common this is, but I don't actually have favorite very many things. I have lots of collections of things that I like, but not this specific one is my perfect favorite everything, and I love it to death. I have not seen a musical that I didn't like on the
Yeah, I'm
stage.
the
A musical on the stage,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen a lot of them, and I really just love that whole thing.
I,
I'm the same way. The when people ask me favorites, I don't do favorites because it changes. It changes based on the day and things like that. But I like on my Spotify, I have Hamilton bookmarked, and I listen to Dr. Horrible's sing along blog.
the classics. I mean, I challenge anyone to argue that not being a classic when you have Nathan Fillion, Neil Patrick Harris, and damn it, I'm drawing a blank on her name.
Felicia Day.
Thank you. I had it and then I forgot it as I said, started talking about it. You put those three together, tell me it's not a classic.
That's fair.
And King Nate asks, "What is your favorite?" Oh no, that's Amy. Nate distracted me. Bad Nate. Preferred musical genre: jazz, rock, pirate death metal, etc.
I like 80s hair metal.
I don't have. I kind of bounce musical genres depending on mood. But I can say so my preferred genres, because for me, I use music to kind of adjust my workflow. So I tend to bounce a lot between rap and power metal are my two primaries. Same power
Amy,
metal as
don't you know that there's no such thing as genres anymore?
I know, right? Actually, also listen to country and rock, all kinds of other crap, but you know.
Yep, yep.
I listen to modern rap influenced, rock influenced, pop influenced, everything
Whenever I want to
influenced,
listen to something new,
whatever.
I ask Chimi what I should to, and he gives me something, and I try it, and I usually like it.
Fair. Very fair. Amy asks, if you know it, what is a video game with an incredibly well written story? I mean, I have the ultimate example of brilliant story destroyed with the ending. Lee knows what I'm talking about, I think.
Oh,
Because, let's face it, Mass Effect was wonderful until that ending. Landed, you shut your mouth. Yes, Mass Effect 3, exactly. Brilliant until the end.
You know what? When I started publishing, I had to stop playing role-playing games because I would have like a spurt 2 days when I just finished something and I wasn't ready to start downtime. That's when I could play games. And I had to do all these other things too. So I'd have like a 4-hour chunk of time and maybe 2 days, 4-hour chunks of time.
Yep.
And then I would go away from the game for another 2 months while I'm writing back to it. And it's like, what am I even doing? I don't even
Mhm.
remember how to use the control. So I don't really play RPGs anymore. I haven't for several years. I do like Assassin's Creed though. A lot.
Assassin's Creed, I think they've started losing their way. I'm gonna have to go and open the door. Jem just got home, but I can talk still. So I'd say I think Assassin's Creed started drifting a little bit, but is overall still solid.
And then he just sort of blanks out.
And then it kind
Uh,
of blanked out, developers hurting studio things, that sort of thing. It happens. So,
I don't know. It's still fun.
oh, it's still
So I don't
fun.
know. Yeah, I don't really have any well written. I mean, I really enjoyed Dragon Age Origins. That's about the last thing I was able to play as an RPG all the way.
I never finished Dragon Age Origins.
Well, it's really hard to finish Dragon Age. It's got like 5,000 endings.
Well, I mean, so the big problem I ran into, because during the period while I was in the Navy, it was, you play something, you play something, you play something, and oh, you're changing where you're stationed, and you kind of drop everything you were doing, because for a month and a half, 2 months, you don't have access to it. And I still have not finished Battlestar Galactica because I transitioned from Sicily to Bahrain and I just never got back into it. And by now I'd have to rewatch it, and I don't want to do that.
That's okay. The ending kind of sucked anyway.
I've heard that.
yeah.
But I will say it really hit the military feel correctly, in my opinion.
It just got a little weird at the end. I
I've
mean,
heard
a little
that
bit
too.
more weird than I'm not saying I have a problem with weird because I can do weird, but it got a little too.
And King Nate points out he played more games in the Navy well underway than he does now. King Nate, you're about to call me a heathen. I was in the Navy for 5 years and never went to a ship. I'm about to get hatred. I just know it. Yep, there it is.
So, I like video games. I play a lot of video games. My favorite story of video games would probably be, it might be nostalgia glasses now, but Chrono Trigger and Earthbound from the Super Nintendo. A good modern game that I never actually finished, so I don't know how the story goes all the way to the end. But there's a game called Aquaria, which is one of the games where there's a certain part in it where if I could take a pill to make myself forget that game just so that I could play that part again, I would.
I think the real accomplishment for any game is you get the player to form that really solid emotional reaction or emotional attachment. If you can do that in a video game, you've won.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, absolutely.
I
I
actually.
mean,
That's what we all want.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's not the only thing that can win in the game. Like I've never felt an emotional attachment to any given Tetris piece, but I'd still call Tetris a great game.
No, Tetris forms that
Timmy,
emotional
you
attachment
monster.
by making you throw things.
By withholding a line piece from you.
Yes, yes. And they programmed that, damn it.
Absolutely.
Actually, they didn't. The original Tetris, it was completely random. Uh,
Mm.
and like they've gone in and they've seen that, or at least the Nintendo version was. It was just 100% random, which leads to strange droughts.
Kind of like Mythweaver's Die Roller.
Exactly.
Don't know how you just rolled 3 natural ones, but damn if you didn't just do it. Or, unfortunately, in the Game Master's case, that player, I don't know how you rolled 3 nat 20s in a row, but damn you.
You got enough people throwing dice, that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yep, because the Die Roller polls, I mean, it's the same thing running every time. It's just randomizing every roll.
Wait. I thought Nathan just grabbed a handful of dice whenever anyone used the dice roller.
You know, sometimes I wonder.
That's
All right.
why I'm always nice to him before I have a serious roll I need to make.
Well, with that, we are going to have to wrap it up. We're about out of time, and Nathan said we have to keep these to an hour and a half now to be gentle on the editor or save money or something. One of those be responsible things he spouts off at me. So, our standard Patreon plug, I'd just like to take a moment to remind everyone that this episode of Weaving Myths and every episode of Weaving Myths is made possible by our Patreon. Every contribution goes towards making the show better and keeping us running, and we are eternally grateful for all of our patrons. Most recently, our incredibly generous patrons have allowed Weaving Myths to be professionally edited, and we have a brand new logo. So if you were here early, I'm sorry we started on time at 8. I know no one is used to that. You would have seen our new logo during the countdown screen. That logo was selected by a handful of our patrons, so if you'd like to be included in future polls, you should definitely sign up. As always, regular Weaving Myths episodes will be available for free, and signing up for the Patreon is never required. Full episodes will always be available for download, and streaming is free of charge. Now, some thank yous to our extremely generous patrons that have signed up at the Platinum or greater tier. We have Absent Wizard, Amanda C, Amy G, and Maru A. So thank you, you four, for being extremely generous with the donations. And thank you everyone so much for joining us today. It's been a blast, and we appreciate all the comments and questions from the text chat as always. For those of you watching the video recording, please don't forget to take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and ring the bell on our YouTube. It costs nothing and it helps the show grow. I'm Colin, and I've been joined by the magnificent Lee and Chimi. Chimi may have died. We'll go with dead.
Oh. A goodbye when I say your name. I didn't push my push to talk.
Thank you for listening, and keep on weaving those myths.